There is a saying that there's two constants in life, death and taxes. I suggest there's a third, and that's about change. Change is everywhere in the human world. Odd, therefore, that change is so difficult and that leading change causes so many challenges for people in businesses across the world. What is it about change that creates those difficulties? Well, it's important to realise the way the brain actually functions is set up to resist change. All of us, to a greater or lesser extent, resist change. The reason being, the brain has found out the best way of doing things, and it doesn't want to do things differently. Why would it? The way it's done has always worked in the past. When thinking about change, one of the models I like referring to is the change curve. This was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, an American psychologist, who understood how change in life, in business, was a little bit like the bereavement process. And as in that case, the first thing that we often encounter is what we may call denial. This is where we bury our heads in the sand, where we don't really want to know that the change is real. As the reality of the change kicks in, we start to feel our confidence falling. Typically, we may experience feelings of sadness or anger during this phase. And when we're leading change, one of the things we want to work on is to help move people on from that point to a point of acceptance and to a point of new growth. Clearly, with change being such a challenging issue, as leaders, one of the things we may want to consider is the change really worthwhile? One way of thinking that through is to use what's typically called the change formula. The change formula is based on three different elements. First of all, it's the discomfort of no change. So what happens if we do nothing? If nothing very much changes, then actually, why are we bothering? The second bit is there a clarity or a vision about what the future is going to look like? And finally, is there a process that's going to support and enable that change to happen? Only if those three elements are in place and they're greater than the risk of doing nothing is the change likely to be worthwhile. As a leader of change, some tips for actually making that change happen. Firstly, be proactive. It was Stephen Covey who told us, do something. If something isn't working, you need to actually make something happen. John Kotter's work as well on leading change has identified a number of really useful tips to move things forward. First of all, make sure there is a clarity about where you're going. What is that vision? Then make sure you manage the people side. This is about having a process around people. Make sure you know how it's going to impact on people. Make sure you think about how you're going to communicate that issue. And make sure you're clear with people, well, how is it going to affect me? What happens if? People will want to know the answers to those questions. When leading change, accept some uncertainty. It's very rare that we know exactly how something will pan out. So accept that uncertainty will be part of it. Don't panic if something comes up that you're not expecting, and actually use the uncertainty to get a better outcome. Think about what we might call quick wins. These are things that show you're on the right track, that you can flag up to people. Yes, this is working because. And when the change is finally in place, remember that issue about the human mind. It will go back to the old ways of working as soon as it can. So one of the things you need to do is to keep reinforcing that the new ways are here to stay until people start accepting that is the new way of doing things. In summary, remember, a reaction to change is human, it's perfectly normal. But your role as a leader is to support and lead people through change. And finally, on the change itself, you may be much further along in understanding why the change is the right thing to do. Help people get to the same point you are.